Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. Be advised, of course, that today I am recording after having worked a full day. And usually when we do these recordings, I don't know if you can tell, but I sound dead-ass tired. Okay? So I'm just letting you know right now that if I slur my words or if I trip over whatever I'm saying, that's why. Okay? So, of course, this is the podcast that brings you all of the latest stories coming out of the world of movies and more. And I'm joined today alongside David Francisco, who, you know what, David? I think we need to address a couple of elephants in the room before we move forward, because I don't know what's been happening lately. You are honestly one of the nicest people I've ever met. I don't know if you've ever even heard a fly or something, and I know throughout the many years you've been nothing but, considerate and friendly toward Peter and Kyle. Even though sometimes they haven't really reciprocated. It doesn't really go both ways. I know in the instance of Peter, the people who he chooses to, say nice things to, happens to be very transactional for him. It very much depends on what you've done for him lately or what you've said to him lately, and if you've done something that wasn't quite how he feels, well, he'll do something like, for example, on the Top 10 show, I had mentioned that Alexis just hasn't gotten around to seeing Avatar: The Way of Water, and Peter took it to such an extremity that he said that that's an attack on indigenous peoples, which is so fun. Which is, hilarious, right? But of course, not at all what Alexis intends. And then on the other hand, you have Kyle, who, I want to say, at some points even forgot you existed. It's just, throughout the years, I'm not saying as in recently. But the reason I bring this up is because I don't know what has happened in the last few weeks, but out of nowhere, they've been taking some dirty ass pot shots at you for seeming, and honestly, completely unprovoked. Right? Like, I don't even know what it's like to be you, to just like read the responses to just some things that you liked. And I'm not sure. I know you know them, and I know how you can, okay, this has to do something with Alexis probably. I don't even know. You had nothing to do with any of that. I don't even know what you did to warrant it. All you did was having an opinion, and then all of a sudden, this mountain of hate just like it came at you.
Yeah.
I gotta know, like, what the fuck were you thinking when you read, like, what? What did I do? You knew it was gonna. What? Okay, here's the thing. If you're saying you knew it was gonna happen, obviously listeners at this point don't know what the fuck we're talking about. And I promise I'll let them in, but I just want to say it out there first before I even reveal what the opinions were that caused such a ruckus. But I gotta say, please explain to me why it is that you saw it coming completely.
I just know Peter and Kyle well. Well, I didn't see it right away. I think it was after the podcast when I heard their top 10. Like, I didn't realize how much they love Banshees. And then once I heard that, I was kind of like, they're not gonna like it, huh? what I had to do, what I had to say.
And of course, Kyle and Peter, and they're, to be fair to them, they're fairly busy people, and they don't really take it upon themselves to listen, at least that I'm aware of, to the podcast. So what I did, is I clipped out that segment and I put it on the chat. Now, in this instance, you might accuse me as being somebody that would stir the pot, but not in the sense that it ended up being. So what's the context for all of this? And by the way, it's not just a one issue. It happened again, but it also kind of springs from the top 10 show, right? So, by the way, guys, this is our episode today. It's 443. We're just gonna, use this podcast to button up some lingering feelings we've had about a number of things. So it's not that heavy on news or even a review here. We're just two guys talking about, the BS that happens behind the scenes and, the shit that we say to each other. So this is what happened. On last week's show, which was titled Mrs. Harris Goes to the Movies, appropriately because we spent a good bit of the podcast, David, Alexis, and I, talking about a movie. Go figure, right? But in this case, it was called Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. By the way, if you didn't know, now you know, it is an amazing film. All of us loved it. And I thought, perfectly explained the reasons for why we loved it. And you should go and see it. And more than anything else, please let that be the takeaway from this conversation, that's something you should do. Because honestly, I found it endlessly delightful, and even just thinking about the film brightens up my mood. It's just that infectious. To be quite honest with you, I clipped that out there to see what the reaction would be from them, particularly because, well, at least from Peter. And don't misconstrue this as like me wanting them to attack you. That really wasn't my intention. What I wanted to put out there is, hey, guys, this isn't a movie I made up. There are these other guys, our friends saw it as well, and they gave it positive marks. And I even put out the clip there that you had removed, to be fair, rather unceremoniously, but hey, you do you, right? You had removed Banshees of Inisherin from the top 10 completely and had slotted in Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. And, there's a couple of ways to think about that decision, right? For one, I'm thinking maybe next year, David, we should probably have you on with us. The problem and the reason why you haven't been asked to be a part of the shows lately, or not lately, but I mean those top 10 shows, is because look how long it already was. Yeah. With three of us, it was 3.5 hours. And the idea of adding a fourth person to do that show, I shudder to think how long it would be, And so we have to come up with a way to keep the shows from going any longer than 3.5 hours, honestly. But going forward, I would like for you to be part of those shows because, you did have interesting choices. You did have the ranking of the films were definitely interesting. And I would have loved to have had you there to, explain why, certain films were in those positions. But, the thing is this. We saw the film, at least I did, and I loved it. I mentioned it on the podcast. Peter said I made it up, and then it wasn't brought back up again. Anyway, this was my way of maybe it's a two-pronged thing where, admittedly, yes, I do. When the stars align, I do to throw it in his face a little bit sometimes when I feel his opinion is wrong. And look, all of us, I think for the most part, have a lot of common ground. And what we like about films, we have a lot of common ground when it comes to the films that we honestly like and adore. But at the same time, we also have differences that really can't be explained more than just hey, sometimes films connect and sometimes they don't. Like, for example, I went out on a limb, even though the rest of you, and I knew you were going to praise it, really love the Prey film. I just said out there, you know what, guys? You do you and everything, but I couldn't find myself really caring at all about what was going on in the movie. And I like Predator. I really like the original movie. So I don't know what happened there. And for the sexist and misogynist out there, no, it's not because it was a female lead. Okay, so sit down and fuck off. Remember, sit down and fuck off. I'm not playing around today. Okay, I'm just not. Okay, I've been with kids all week long. I am not fucking around. So if you're gonna be throwing that, hissy fit about it, well, we'll see you in November when the Marvels comes out in theaters. Anyway, because we all know they're gonna keep that appointment.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is this. So yeah, Peter weirdly picks some things that I happen to really like, and then for really no reason at all, it just like says like negative things about them that he doesn't even mean. He's not even being serious, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm not gonna miss the opportunity to throw it in his face when someone else agrees with me and loves a movie like I do. Why the fuck not? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna clip this out. I'm gonna put it on the chat and see what kind of response it gets. And I was surprised in how hard they came after me. I was like, holy shit. And here I was thinking I would be the one that would be attacked for say like, why are you using them to say that we're wrong? You think that would be the natural progression of things, but no, they tripled down and quadrupled down on like hitting you in the face. Not just for liking a movie, but for, I guess now you're the second person to do this after me, changing their mind about the placement of a movie on their list, and you ended up taking out a movie that did very well with all of us, up until you changed your mind. Banshees of Inisherin was one of the films that was on all of our lists. It wasn't in the same place on our lists, but it was one of the films that was just across the board everybody liked. By the way, so did you. So did you. I mean, you had it in your top 10. It's like, and I know you've said in the past few weeks and months that this last year, unfortunately, wasn't one that had a lot of great, choices out there, and it wasn't your favorite year in movies. Now, I saw a lot of them. I saw over 100 movies last year, and I can say it was one of my favorite years. And again, it just depends on how much time you've had. I went out of my way to see as many as I could, And I didn't mention everything that I liked, but because there's too much. And even then, fucking Peter went out of his way to, and even in the show, I was listening back to it yesterday in the top 10 show, that jackass tried to one-up us, but like, I can't believe he didn't mention these movies. All the while, he was like, saying that nobody mentioned Prey, even though you did. It was on your list. By the way, you're the only person, and this you can hold it over, Peter and Kyle, because, they worship at the altar that is Robert Eggers. You're the only guy that put the Eggers movie in his top 10 list, and that was The Northman. So, yeah, that was just quite interesting. But Banshees was a beloved film. I don't think just among, us, but everybody. Yeah, it was my number 3 movie of the year. Honestly, even though by the time we get to the top 3, I kind of feel like none of us gets a chance to really, clarify many things, because by the time we get to the top 3, it's a bunch of shots fired left and right. So the Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Fabelmans were so close to me. Like, you have to, and I hope it was put out there, at least the feeling was, it was difficult this time around, because I don't think there had ever been a top 3 that was so close in proximity to each other. you know? Like, it was a top 10 that a film by Rian Johnson barely made it in. That's how contentious that top 10 was. And I love anything by Rian Johnson.
Yeah, for sure.
Interestingly enough, when you had swapped out Banshees for Mrs. Harris, I was like, okay, good. I think ultimately it's good because, look, the movie did really good amongst all of us, and I think it helps to add more diversity in the kinds of movies that are on these lists. So ultimately, I think what you did was for the best, and it even got me thinking, because I wanted to put that movie in my top 10, but if you remember in my honorable mentions, it barely missed it. Yeah. It was like the movies that barely missed were Tar, Smile, and Mrs. Harris. Those were the three that were in contention for the number 10 slot, but I ended up putting Top Gun Maverick in there, and I want to say I rewatched Top Gun Maverick in the last few weeks before we finalize our lists. And dude, that is such a good movie. It is such an enjoyable movie. It just kind of like wins you over, you know? So you know it when you see it that Top Gun Maverick is an instant classic and it's going to be beloved for generations to come. You just know it and you feel it when you see it. And it's kind of hard to go against that. At the same time, I'm not going to lie, David. In the days that you've done that, I've been going in my mind, damn it, should I have put that movie, Mrs. Harris, at number 10? Because it's like, it's such a perfect movie. And it's also one of the things that it has on its side that some of the other films just can't have is so easily rewatchable. I think I've seen it like 3 or 4 times. Granted, sometimes I do put movies on in the background, I mentioned maybe before in this podcast that sometimes I do put things on in the background, not even with any, sound on. It's just, the subtitles and it's just on mute while I'm doing some work on my computer. Like, for example, the most recent time, this was like 3 weeks ago, I was watching The Banshees of Inisherin. Here's the thing. I wasn't planning on watching it. I was planning it on putting it on in the background while I'm looking at my computer doing some stuff. Most of the time, I wasn't even looking at my computer. I was looking at my TV watching the movie because it's so beautiful to look at. And then, of course, I'm trying to remember the lines of dialogue, which, of course, are very memorable in that movie, But all the while, I'm watching it with the sound off, and it's still great. And the same thing goes for Mrs. Harris.
Yeah.
And I guess the point overall being is that's a great movie. There's no need for any kind of pushback on anyone's part that movie has no business being in the top 10. But it was funny how hard they came at you, man. Mm-hmm. They were saying things like, they lost all respect for you or like, some other. And I think they have it in their head. I want to say the reason why they acted, the way that they did was because it also comes off the heels. And I really want to know what your reaction was. I assume you've already listened to the entirety of the top 10 podcast that we did, right?
Yeah.
Okay. When the time came to talk about Fabelmans, right? And with the revelation that you had placed it on your number 2, what I loved so much was how disgusted Peter and Kyle particularly were. And look, we're the kind of friends where, we cap on each other like that, It's like sometimes, sure. When we detect, each other's personal disgust or disdain, we just can't help but stir the fucking pot, man. It's just how we are. And so I knew I when I saw your list, I was like, fuck yeah, I can do this. I know how to unveil it at the right time. And then when it came to it, they were so disgusted. I mean, first of all, earlier on in the show, Peter even said outright that he was disgusted that Kyle had even put it on his honorable mentions list, which, by the way, I don't even know how this went unnoticed. In that Fabelmans for Kyle Lira was actually placed above certain movies like Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. If you go back and like you kind of like fly through it. He didn't really say much on it because we're gonna go back to it later on because he knew. But it's like he just mentioned it, and it was like, hey, we go back and listen to the placement. Kyle Lira put the Fabelmans on top of Puss in Boots, which might have, been one of the reasons for why Peter immediately said he was disgusted by it. But little did he know, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Little did he know. And then once that was unveiled, they were even throwing around accusations. Like, I think Kyle was like saying that you spend too much time with me and that you're letting me influence your opinions. And it's like, look, I've never told you how to think. I've thrown a lot of things at you for sure. I share a lot of things. We communicate on a near day-to-day basis on things that we see online. I share articles with you. I share reviews with you, clips, art, a whole bunch of stuff. Is it really? I mean, I wouldn't say I'm influencing you in one way or the other. I'm just sharing things with you. Like, we share things with each other on the chat all of the time. But I know it's fairly obvious that it shouldn't even need to be explained, but like, you've always had your opinions, and I don't ever remember a time where you've ever changed them in the moment because of somebody else, unless sometimes, we have to give credence to this. Sometimes, in the moments of reviewing movies, one of us will say something that will make us see parts of a movie a different way. Like, I think you had said to me one time that when we were doing, remember we used to do this series, this is a video series called After Dark, where we would go into our cars and try and film a video of what our initial reactions were after a movie. I think you told me one time that while listening to Peter speak, because this was a film that we all saw together, and so we were all in the car together. This was Suicide Squad back in 2016. I think I remember you saying to me that in the moment, the more you heard Peter talk, the more and more the film was diminishing in your mind, and that was only just, having a few minutes removed from having seen it for the first time, Yeah. But it's like, I didn't say it, but I wanted to say, well, if you had been listening to Red Spotlight, like some of you claim that you did, Kyle and Peter, you would know that, David, you came on this show a while back, you said you saw The Fabelmans, and you said you really loved it.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't a secret. Like, you could kind of, like, predict this if you were paying attention. So, I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to, talk about this because I found it really funny. How I feel like the whole Banshee of Mrs. Harris thing and the really aggressive way they came at you kind of spurred from the whole, I guess, placement of the Fabelmans in your, which, by the way, it's funny how that's the movie that's, for us anyway, seen as the lightning rod. And like, full disclosure, Peter doesn't hate the movie. Like, I watched the movie with him. He laughed a lot. Like, the movie was working with him almost all of the way. It just happens to be a Spielberg film, and for whatever reason, if you've noticed lately, he doesn't seem to gel well with whatever he brings to a film. And usually, to his credit, every time we do a review of it, he brings different reasons for why it doesn't work for him. Fabelmans, West Side Story, The Post, Bridge of Spies, and I think even to an extent Lincoln for him are the kind of films where he goes like, okay, that was good. Don't really care. I'm going to have some issues, but, But because they all happen to be films that I love, and it's my favorite guy doing the movies, of course, it's the long-running thing on our show is that whatever Alexis loves the most, Peter can't wait to kill almost immediately. He takes a hammer and a sickle to it, and he just is like, he bashes it, and bashes it. And, it's been no secret that throughout, almost a decade of doing this podcast that, some of us do have insecurity issues. Of course I do. All of us do. And sometimes, we've, there would be times, and I think even to I think I've gotten better at it throughout the years where, I want to say, when we did our Fablemans review, Peter and me, we had a nice back and forth. Mm-hmm. I knew he was going to come at it from a very completely point of view, and that was fine. But I feel like, lately more and more, I do push back more on some things, and that's fine. We can push back and forth on. That's what a dialogue is. But it used to be years prior that I would just shut down. I would let him get all of his issues out of the way with, mm-hmm. and then we just move on. Yeah. Because I would just be like, because it does sound a bit childish saying it out loud, but it's like, hey, he's my friend. I would like for my friend to like something that I like in the way that I do. But guess what? Sometimes that just ain't gonna happen. And with mm-hmm. Peter, a lot of the times that just ain't gonna happen. It is what it is. And, it's a big ask. In some ways, it's a ridiculous ask. But why are we talking about this? Well, it's just to provide, clarity and context, for where all of this came from and for why, some things seem to be a bit over the top. But David, mm-hmm. now that I've gone on this long spiel, and oh my God, I did want to laugh, but mainly because I was just completely speechless, and it was so stupid that it somehow worked. When Kyle said that, when I finished talking about Fablemans, the last thing I said, and you know what? In retrospect, I should have been smarter to have not done this. I said, enough of that spiel. And then he said, you mean spiel? And I'm like, that's a typical Kyle Lira joke. And you know what? Sometimes the timing is so spot on, and it's so stupid, and it is funny. So you gotta give him credit for that, but it's like that's a Kyle line if there ever was one. But hey, I don't know if you have anything to say about any of what I just said, but I would like for you to incorporate a little bit about why that film was so high for you. Even though I think for me, I think we've talked about this on here, but for the noobs out there who don't pay attention when you're on a show, this is the time for you to say how it is that you feel.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've mentioned it before, but like my top 10s, it's all about movies that like just make me feel good. And Mrs. Harris is nothing but a feel-good movie.
Right?
You love the main character. You love how the other characters treat her. I mean, at least the nice ones. And then when you think like the asshole characters are gone from the movie, some of them come back and they like have a change of heart. It's all because of the main character. Changing their ways, I guess you can say. And so, yeah, I mean, the fact that it's nothing but a feel-good movie, technically should be higher on my list or something, but I mean, I gotta put the rest on top. But I mean, look at the rest of the movies. Puss in Boots, I mean, it's hilarious, so fucking fun, and again, you love the main character. Top Gun Maverick, RRR, Dragon Ball, Fablemans. I guess you could say Everything Everywhere. Everything Everywhere, though, it's like more so of the action and all that, and just kind of like the madness of it all. I guess you could say that like brings me joy. It's just like, holy shit, you guys are doing this whole thing. I mean, who doesn't love the hot dog fingers? Like, that's fun. And, right. Oh my gosh, the part where the daughter was using dildos to fight the
no, dude. I think the part where I lost my mind was the anal plugs.
Yes. Like
that
it's, like you could tell like the creators were probably having fun with just like.
I mean, you had a sequence of two guys pull their pants down in a race to put their assholes on top of an anal plug. I mean, while there being action, all while that's going on, I mean, what more can you say? And that won Best Picture at the Academy Awards.
Yeah, and then some movies on my list, it's more so for technical reasons, like The Whale, the fact that it takes place in one room,
right,
and all that. I mean, and I think maybe for other film lovers out there, it's probably like a very simple idea, but like I did love the idea that they put it in a 4:3 aspect ratio, and all because of the Brendan Fraser's size of his fat suit and all that to kind of take up all the screen. Like I found that interesting and all that.
Quite blubberous.
And then the Batman. I mean, it's a beautiful fucking movie. I had to put it on top, and I love Batman, the character. The Northman, that one's more so for technical reasons. I love that the whole movie looked black and white, but I don't think like it was like changed in post into black and white, probably. I don't know. And then there are just some great shots of it all that I really loved. And yeah, I mean, Banshees was in my top 10 for a while. It was,
and then it wasn't.
Yes. Just because it's hilarious. Oh my god, like everyone is hilarious in that movie, and all the times they said "fackin'."
Yeah,
it's so funny. And so yeah, that's basically just my two reasons. Like a lot of it kind of has to do with story, but it's more so it's just how fun it is and all that. And the reason why Fablemans is in my top 2 is because I just found it surprisingly relatable. The first thing that like caught my attention was when Sammy moved to Arizona, and then he really started to kick off his like filmmaking chops. And guess what? I moved to Arizona and I went to school. That's right. And I really like started taking classes for film. Like I blew my mind, and when I was watching with my sister, I really thought she was gonna bring that up, but she never did. But I'm like, "Are you serious right now? Like, come on!"
It's like that. I don't know if it's from Euphoria, whatever media that clip is taken out from. But there's this trending clip out there where these two girls are watching a show, and then their response when they realize, "Wait, is this play about us?" And it's like, I can imagine. I think you had that experience, I think 2 times. Like with Fablemans, literally, wait, is this movie about me? Did Spielberg just make a movie about me? And then with you and Alexis coming back from Japan, literally traveling internationally to watch Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. It's like, wait, is this movie about us?
Also, like, remember when we talked about it and we had this conversation about how people like judge us for taking all these kinds of trips? My parents, at the time we were recording, they went on the trip too, to Mexico and all that. And when they came back, they literally started talking to us about how some people were judging them for like taking all these trips. My mom's going to have a birthday party soon. So like they're spending all this money to like have these fun moments. And like my sister and I literally looked at each other like, we just had this conversation. Like, what the fuck?
Wow.
Yeah, it's just insane. I guess, I mean, that's probably another reason why.
Damn, man. You guys have had a tough month of just people taking shots at you left and right just for having the audacity to travel, and I guess from our group have opinions.
But then also with Fablemans, like I completely understood those moments where, you know, people would have this like serious conversation in front of Sammy, and all you can think about was just wanting to work on his films or like look at his film strips and all that. It's like, I get it. It's not that like I don't care. I literally don't know how to respond to this. Like I don't know what you want from me. This thing is happening. I cannot control what is happening.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had to roll with it, you know? And so I really related to the Fablemans.
Right. And, you know, I can't personally say that, like, I related to it in that way, obviously, because I didn't go to Arizona and I didn't go to film school. But I guess in the way that I related to it was that this was a kid that, kind of knew early on what he liked, and he went for it. But at the same time, it's a kid that did feel like, as the film gets into, did love his family, does love his family, and that would never want to do anything to do that, right? And I want to say that that's a relatively universal concept of people who do want to pursue their dreams, right? But also just like what he did in the film at one point, try and, take a step away from that because of what was going on in the events of the movie, where he felt responsible for the collapse of the family because of the secret that he unearthed through his talent in capturing film. I think it's universal in the sense for families. Again, I don't come from a broken home. I would imagine, though, if you do come from, a divorced family, there could be stuff in there for you to latch onto, right? But I guess to me, what was the thing that touched me the most about, and there were a lot of things, right? But what was the thing that really stuck with me about that movie? I think to me, more than anything, to me, what I see most in the film is a person who really, really loved his parents. I see a person that loved his family, that loved life. I see a person that is every day, through the process of making this movie, very much reflecting back on the life that he's lived and on the times that he was a child. And I'm not 76 years old. Sometimes I act like it, but I'm not 76 years old. I guarantee you that, even though Spielberg is. But what I find in him is a person that, in the moment in the movie where Mitzi is so happy after having seen the camping video that Sammy had put together, and they're showing it for the whole family. And then she goes up and embraces him and says, "You really see me." Even though, oh God, that's one of the best moments in the movie, because like when you look at the reaction on Gabriel Labelle's face, it's like, yeah, I really see you here. But with Steven and with all of the things that he appreciates most in life, I don't know what it is, but I do feel seen. I feel understood. I feel oddly, at home with who this person is. And I think you can't really find a better example of that than in this movie. He's not, confident. He's not cocky, even though in a way he should be, because he's fucking incredible at what he does, but he's not that way at all. He can be reserved. He can be shy. And sometimes maybe he doesn't necessarily have, the best judgment, but he tries and tries and tries to just find whatever happiness he can in life. And I just feel like I rarely find characters, even in the things that I love the most, that I find a deep connection with, or that remind me of who I was. And I think it also is a reminder that for me, it was a very lonely childhood. I'm not gonna lie to you there, and I've been really outspoken about this before. That as a child, kind of afraid of a lot of things, was very antisocial, didn't really interact much, and had the worst kind of social cues. And to know where I was and to know where I am right now, where I know that in my current occupation, I happen to be surrounded by faculty and alumni that, for reasons that still mystify me, show me such kindness. They show me such love in ways that I didn't, at one point very early on in my life, I didn't quite think I would ever find myself to be in. It continues to move me. And yeah, man, like when I mentioned about characters, like, there's a reason why I really clicked with Luca, not just the movie, but with that character. Why I love that film so much is because Luca was one of the movies where, man, that kid is so much like who I was at that age. But most of the things that are out there wouldn't really, I would say, fit the mold of what I was. I wasn't simple. I was very complicated. And then the same can be said for Steven Spielberg. But I mean, that's just one of the areas in which the film deeply resonated with me, That doesn't even begin to get into how much he loves his mother and father. It doesn't even get into, ultimately, how beautiful a thing film is. Look at, I think Denis Villeneuve said it right when this is one of the best films ever made from the perspective of showing what the power of cinema is. Now, in a way, when you hear that, the power of cinema, that's how this movie was being sold for a long time now. But if you remember, David, it was kind of sold with a different angle in mind. People were really talking about this in the lead up, and even after it being released, with the mind that it was about the life of Steven Spielberg. And I already have gone on to death before that when people hear that, they think of, oh, biopic, or, oh, I'm going to see sequences in this movie where he's making Jaws or E.T., and it's like, no, that's not really what this is. In this movie, again, I think from an editing standpoint, from a filmmaking standpoint, from a craft standpoint, to me, this film has some of the most jaw-dropping sequences I've ever seen in any movie. I keep going back. To me, one of the most devastating sequences I've ever seen. A sequence that is completely without dialogue. It relies entirely on the direction, on the acting, and on the score. And that is the sequence in which he is editing the camping video and he finds out that this entire time his mother and his father's best friend are in love with each other. And that whole sequence is intercut with, in the background, the piano being played by his mother while being in the same room as the father. And just endlessly powerful. All the while, Sammy is cutting a movie, with his like a little editing device, and it's like, it's so. Again, and then it comes back later on when Mitzi, privately in the closet, is shown the video, and then she comes out breaking down. The film is filled with so many powerful scenes. The whole scene with Judd Hirsch in the bedroom with Sammy, that whole monologue was incredible. And I think one of the scenes that I see trending a lot online, I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but one of the scenes that gets a lot of attention is the scene with the bully. And you know what? That's another way where I see myself as well, because I'm not going to say that I was tormented. It would be fair to say that I was targeted as a kid for, a lot of the awkward, eccentricities that I had, and, for other reasons that I'm sure in their view was justifiable. But, I'm not going to say that I was ever beat the crap out of, but it was more, verbal bullying, whatever it was, right? But even I really, really connected to part of him when he's being pressed. Like, why did you make me look that good up there? I've been nothing but shit to you. What was the reason you made me look like that? And, at first Sammy goes like, well, I don't know what to tell you, man. The camera saw what it saw, and then blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't know. Maybe part of me wanted you to like me for just like 1 second, And that also reminded me of an insecurity that I had my whole life, which is, I'm not going to say I'm a people pleaser because that has a very negative connotation with it, Like, it brings to mind people who will say anything to get people to like them, even if it's like not the truth. That's not the kind of character that I have, nor the kind of way I want to present myself, but more so that there's this feeling inside of me that likes being liked and found pleasant by other people, I don't know. Maybe it stems from the fact that for so long, no one, when I was a kid would want to associate with me. And then out of nowhere in high school, I really started to like engage with people more. And then people, because I spoke up, usually I would just be in the background. I wouldn't talk. I'd just be invisible. I felt invisible through most of my life at school up until my last 2 years, where I started to talk more, where I started to put myself out there more. And the more I talked to people, the more surprised I was by how surprised they were about how, I don't know, approachable and talkable I am with people, and just kind of, I don't know, decent, I guess people really didn't have an idea about what to make of me because I was either in the background or they just remembered me as this really bitchy kid from back in the day. And so, yeah, I've had that for most of my life, this need to be liked by other people, which is stupid, right? Because you shouldn't have to justify yourself, to anybody else. Nobody else should have to like who you are for you to be okay with it. Just same ways that no one else should have to like what you like. So clearly, I think I haven't talked about this before. There were other ways in which the movie did kind of, strike a chord with me. But yeah, overall, I do want to say, man, that I think your list is pretty fucking great. I don't think there's anything objectionable as far as the movies that you have on here. I think, to me, I think it's just more and more evidence that it was a truly exceptional year in movies. I do want to say, I did go like, fuck yeah, when I saw the Dragon Ball movie put in there. And I also knew that would rub them the wrong way as well when you put that in there.
I love Kyle's response. Is like, motherfucker goes to Japan one time. Oh my god. I had to put that in there just because, like, it was a movie with Piccolo as a main character. I mean, come on, for Dragon Ball Z fans, I feel like that was awesome.
No, man, it was a great story too. I feel like if you're a fan of the series, this is considered a must watch, especially if you're fans of those characters that finally get time to shine. And then also puts out there a promise that they could be utilized perhaps just a bit more in whatever they plan in the future, But no, man, I was like, fuck yeah, they put Dragon Ball on there. Great. Yeah, The Whale is very good. I believe 2 people put The Whale on their lists. You were the only one to not include, and I'm not saying explain why. I'm just noting this out, looking at the list because I have them all in front of me. You're the only one that didn't put, well, for starters, Nope, but you haven't seen the movie, so that's kind of an asterisk there. But the other one would be Glass Onion. You're the only one that didn't include Banshees now, and you're the only one that didn't include Glass Onion on the list. You didn't include other films that people had on their lists that you didn't include. Avatar, Tar, Pinocchio, although I believe we saw that one coming because you explained before your feelings on that one. Elvis, yeah, and Prey, although Prey came really close, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But those are some of the films that ended up being on other people's lists, but not quite on yours. But then again, on the other side of things, as I mentioned even in real time, when Peter revealed that he put Puss in Boots at number 10, I was like, dude, how does this keep happening where we have some of us, a pair of us, will have the same film on the exact same spot, like you and him had The Last Wish at the number 10 spot. And I want to say there were quite a number of us that had Malignant at number 10 the previous year.
Did we? Huh.
We did. Either 10 or number 9. It was one of those. I know I have it here in front of me, but I have to flip back through some pages. The point is, it happens every now and then, right? For example, both Alexis and Peter last year had Encanto as their favorite film of the year. This year, I think we all had a different movie as far as what was the favorite. You had RRR. I had The Fabelmans. Peter had Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Kyle had The Batman. All in all, there's nothing here to get mad at. But I do want to. I want to make it clear though, because maybe I don't know. I guess the impression was there that I was trying to fool myself, but like, what was your reaction to the part where I first said that Fabelmans was my number 2, and then following up with that, Kyle immediately was like, "Are you sure about this?" And so, what did you make of that part? Did you see that coming? Were you surprised? Just your general thoughts when that moment happened.
No, yeah, I was a little bit surprised that it was number 2 for a bit.
Because, like, I'm gonna say, for as much as Kyle likes to, or I think he got over it, but for a long time he complained that, guys, why am I so predictable? Like, that was a bad thing. I am very predictable. Like, you guys don't even have to think twice. Like, all of you knew it was Fabelmans. It wasn't even like a question for you guys. The same way you all knew it was Luca the year before. It was so fucking obvious. But I don't know. I don't see that as a problem. I mean, to me, I take it as a sign that you guys know me and you guys know what kind of films really connect with me. The thing that also connect both Luca and Fabelmans, they were both what was the term I called them? Hangout movies? They're both hangout, coming of age movies, you know? And they both had really deeply powerful sequences and messages. So it's like, hey, yeah, I feel like everybody thought that was going to be my number 1 favorite movie. So continue what you were saying. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I just wanted to add on this context.
No, that's fine. No, yeah, it's just a little bit surprising because I was mostly thinking like, what the heck was your number 1? What was it? I forgot. Or like
initially, it would be Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, forgot. No, yeah, just you seem like really connected to it, so I just kind of thought And I was mostly just curious, like, yeah, what was your number one, and like, what's the reason why it's higher and all that. That's basically it. Mm-hmm.
And then, well, there was a bit of history made because I thought I was pretty sure, and then Kyle called me out, and again, like how you are, not usually one to like, okay, I got called out, so now I'll change my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But in all honesty, what he was saying was like, fuck, maybe he's right. Because when it comes down to it, and I was so struggling with this because I had seen both movies many, many times, and even recently, but at the end of the day, there's the one movie that I was more passionate about. There was the one movie that made me feel more. Right? That's just what it comes down to. And I guess what I came back to is I love Everything Everywhere All at Once. I adore that movie. But when it won all those awards, did I feel like my favorite movie won? It didn't feel that way at all. I felt happy, but it didn't feel like my favorite one. And it really didn't at all compare. And I will say my prediction was correct in this. Back from January, when the Golden Globes happened. Nothing quite really captured the mixture of emotion and excitement that I felt when they called Steven's name to go up there and collect that prize for Best Director. Like, it never even came close to that for me, you know? Like, you should have seen me. I wish I could have recorded my reaction. I was like in denial. And then when they called his name up there, I feel like I not cartoonishly, but I feel like I jumped out of my seat. like literally, it was like in disbelief, like, fuck, no way. Like, no way this actually happened. So yeah, I mean, when you feel that passionately about a film, but for me, what made it very difficult was that, well, wait a minute here. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a magnificent movie, and you love it as well. You just saw it a few days prior to the recording, and it was fucking great. So what's going on here? So it was a tough list for me. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like looking at the list and seeing that as number 2 still doesn't feel right, but it feels more right seeing Fabelmans as number 1. So we'll see. We'll see how these age over throughout the years. Do you know if Alexis had time to listen to the show? Did you guys talk about it or not really?
No, I don't think she has. I know we haven't talked about it. So.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see when we get a chance to do it, to talk about it with her. Anyway, right now, transitioning away from that, I just wanted to open the show with that because I found it funny. The industry right now, there's a lot of films that are opening, and there are a lot of reactions that are happening right now, just to catch people up. So for one minor thing, tomorrow, Kyle ultimately declined to accompany us because he had some other obligations to attend to. But tomorrow, Peter and I are going to, we have to travel to San Diego, but fuck it. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. We're going to go see, this will be our first times watching this on the big screen, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi for the 40th anniversary. And I can't fucking wait because you know what? This is truly, without a doubt, I mean, it's Star Wars for one, but like this is one of the ones that, it used to be this was my favorite of the Star Wars films, but still a lot of moments in Episode 6 are have some of my favorite moments in all of Star Wars. Like, it is incredible. Interestingly enough, I'm sure you are aware, David, of the long-standing father-son dynamic that Spielberg has in most of his movies. It's odd. You are aware, right, that Steven Spielberg at one point was supposed to direct Episode 6? You aren't? Okay, no. So the story is George had asked Steven Spielberg to direct Return of the Jedi. However, and this delves into politics, movie politics, in that George Lucas was really antagonistic toward the Directors Guild of America. And because Steven was a member of the Directors Guild of America, he was prohibited from directing Episode 6. And if he had done that, he would have had to have, like, let his membership go, which could have damaged his career. That's how, that's why we didn't get what we, in another reality, maybe what they got. But still, Jedi, at its core, still feels like a Spielberg movie. Why? Because it's about a father and a son, reconciling, So still, it's like, it's ironic that the film that Steven Spielberg almost directed, at the end of the day, still has some of those similarities you would have seen in a Spielberg movie. Richard Marquand ended up directing the film. He really isn't known for anything else besides that. And if you remember, I don't know if it was in Empire of Dreams or whichever documentary, but what ended up happening is George wasn't, it's not that he wasn't happy with Richard Marquand. It's more that he felt the need to babysit and supervise him on the set more so. Because what he really liked was having his film teacher, Irvin Kershner, who directed Empire Strikes Back. He really liked not having to be there on set every day and letting a real professional do the directing. Whereas in Jedi, what happened was George bit off more than he can chew in the hiring of Richard Marquand and ended up having to be on set a lot more, which might explain, just some of the things that people don't quite so care for in that movie. But I'm excited. I mean, it's my birthday this weekend. So it's like, hey, that's a great way to celebrate that. In addition to the following week, which brings us the release of the third and final installment of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which, David, I have to say, it kind of feels, it doesn't feel real yet, does it? Like, we've seen the trailers, we've responded so positively to them, but it still doesn't feel real, especially when you consider how long of a saga this has been. All the way back from the first Guardians movie in 2013 to the sequel coming out in 2017, but it's been a large gap between 2 and 3. Like, think about this. We are toward the end of the Joe Biden administration, right? When Guardians 2 came out, we were at the very beginning of the Trump administration. So if you do the math, so 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, it's like more or less 5.5 years in between. That's a long time. Yeah. And you know what happened in that time was a lot of fucking drama and bullshit. I remember the day waking up and looking at my phone, the headline, James Gunn fired by Disney. Oh my God. And for longtime listeners, do you remember what this show was like back in 2018, where every fucking week we would be on a tear about the outrage that we felt that James Gunn was wrongfully fired? that no one was talking about, that Mike Cernovich, which was basically this alt-right enforcer, put these out with the intention to have had Gunn fired. And the only reason that Cernovich did this was because Gunn identified more so with the left than the right on the political spectrum. By the way, that's cancel culture. That's cancel culture. That's right. They're the party of cancel culture. We can't forget that, because that's literally what the point was to get him fired, which is cancel culture, right? Anyway, that was going on. And then that whole year, the first headline we got was, James Gunn is directing the Suicide. What the fuck? That was a big headline in and of itself. And then even more, later that same year, James Gunn rehired by Disney and will direct and write Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
But only after the Suicide Squad.
Right. Which, a few years later, guess what? We got, and it was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. Unless we thought that's where it stopped, Gunn's momentum only kept growing and growing more, with the following winter, in early 2022, was his 8-episode television series, which spin-off television series from the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, which continued to show us how Gunn had, grown as a director and a writer. It continued to show us why he's great. Guardians 2, The Suicide Squad, and Peacemaker, I feel, are all the best examples of Gunn's work, where he is able to balance, I feel, some of the best humor, as well as some of the best emotional feels, in a good combination of it, There have been people who have long felt like his brand or his style isn't necessarily all that effective when you're mishing and mashing humor and emotion, drama like that. But I honestly don't know what the fuck they're talking about, because I've always felt quite the opposite. I think he has it down to a T. And Peacemaker in and of itself was amazing. And it reminded the world, or I feel like it kind of stopped us in our tracks and made us realize John Cena is an amazing actor.
Mm-hmm.
He made us feel that way about John Cena.
Yeah.
And then, even after that, guess what happens? He gets hired to run the next 10 years of DC movies. Like, the trajectory of this man's career just keeps going up. And his brand of comic book stuff, I'm sorry, I don't think anybody else can really do what he does the way that he does. You think Marvel and DC in their own ways try, but he gets it. He understands what makes a story in this genre work and truly worthwhile. And so all of that to say is, here we are, a week out before the release of the final Guardians film. And, just as we're recording, David, the reactions have dropped. And, I mean, the reactions they've been what I feel like they were always in a way going to be. We have to remind ourselves that, look, oftentimes we find ourselves alone on an island, right? Where we feel like we're the only ones who think this way. Guardians 2 arguably is the best MCU movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's really up there. It's a great movie. But, a lot of MCU fans don't even acknowledge it or don't even talk about it. Because I think they have different priorities in mind for what makes, a true MCU film worthwhile. But whatever the thing is. So where have the reactions been? Well, the one that made me laugh, really hardest at first was resident James Gunn hater Grace Randolph. she may want to like deny it all she wants, but she particularly comes across quite like adversarial towards him. I think they've even like had like a number of Twitter spats. Again, they do not like each other,
Yeah.
and they make that quite clear. And her initial reaction was, Guardians 3 has that MCU magic. James Gunn quickly becoming phenomenal blockbuster director and might deliver a fire Superman movie. I want to remind you guys, she does not like James Gunn's work. She doesn't like James Gunn. But for her to say this is interesting. Other reactions that have come out tonight. From Mike Ryan, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. James Gunn bets the house on a surprisingly emotional-centered story on Rocket and the love and friendship between these characters. Bets and wins. It's pretty incredible. Animal lovers, there are a couple of tough scenes.
No,
Uh-oh. Matt Neglia had a more mixed reaction. Guardians 3 aspires for sweeping emotion, gut-busting laughs, and thrilling action. It sometimes succeeds, but as a send-off for all these characters, it feels strangely uneven and anticlimactic. Features the best makeup and visual effects of the trilogy. Everything involving Rocket is fantastic. Definitely the star of the movie and where the emotion was most earned. I'm glad James Gunn got to close out this trilogy on his terms. Next, Leo Rydell, Guardians 3 delivered in more ways than one. Emotional, action-packed, comedic, and a tone that delivers. Grab the tissues, because damn, there are some moments, man. Rocket is the man. Music choices great per usual, and VFX delivered. By the way, when was the last time anyone said that about a Marvel movie? The VFX actually delivered.
Oh my god. Just the trailers alone, like, really look better. I mean, have you seen that clip that they've? I don't know if it was today, but like, it's a scene of like Little Rocket. Have you seen it?
I know what you're talking about, but you know what? I've actually stayed away from watching any clips.
I get it.
I stayed away from watching any clips because you know what? I want to experience this movie completely in, but you can talk about it, like about the animation there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it looks, I don't think it was animation. I mean, except for maybe two things. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the rest of it, though, like looked pretty real. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. But the two like CGI things that I noticed, like, perfect. They were amazing. Mm-hmm. I loved it.
Robert Daniels, next up on here. I don't think any reaction around Guardians 3 really captures the weirdness of the film. Tonally, emotionally, visually, and politically all over the place and overwrought. I don't want to go so far as to proclaim it's interesting, but it's something, I guess. Josh Parham, Guardians 3 features... By the way, the people who I am reading these reviews from, I want to be clear. These are people who I follow on Twitter. Duh. But these are people who are not... What's the polite way of saying this, David? They're not the people who like everything, and they're not the people who give everything a... Okay, I'll put it to you this way. The people whose tweets I'm reading are more so critics than they are fans, number one. And number two, they are not the people that Marvel invites the first night over to get a positive reaction. Okay? If this is why, some things might be more blunt in narrative, or negative, but it is what it is. Josh Parham says, Guardians 3 features some of the darkest and most emotional sequences of the series. There are effective moments that violently clash with more familiar action spectacle. There's an earnest celebration for these characters, one that struggles with tonal shifts. Which is something that you've seen. I also want to add here from John DeLillo, Guardians 2 in quotation marks, the best Marvel movie, got similarly mixed to positive reviews. So this makes me hopeful Gunn has made his second ever great movie. Looking at some of the other reactions that I'm seeing here, and they're coming in, they're coming in slowly. But did you hear that? So tomorrow, Friday, they're already sold out, I want to say, but they're doing a special preview, an IMAX preview. So at select theaters across the country, people can get to see Guardians 3 starting tomorrow, actually, but just for the one day. There's a one-day Friday IMAX event. It's like a special preview. And then it'll open in theaters at its scheduled release date on May 5th, I believe, which is a really interesting strategy. And a lot of people had actually speculated that part of the reasoning for that was that Marvel is kind of a little bit scared about how it's going to do. And it's also been out there in the news. I'm sure you saw the clip that I sent you, David, that the film had not been tracking that well. Not for a movie that is the third in a trilogy, that is as successful as this. I actually want to play this clip from Grace Randolph, if I can right now, to remind you what's happening here with the release.
Sensing that Quantumania has done real damage to the brand, both in terms of quality of the film and the unfortunate situation with Jonathan Majors, which is still in a holding pattern before his early May court date, Disney Marvel are handling the debut of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 differently. No big premiere at the El Capitan. Instead, the movie was shown to French press. All the first reactions were in French at the European Gala event this weekend. Then, all critics in North America, at least, and I probably suspect most other countries, will see the movie Thursday night. And social media embargo is already lifted, but the review embargo lifts the very next day at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. So Thursday night, all the critic screenings, Friday morning, or Friday at 1 p.m., the review embargo drops. But Disney Marvel ain't taking no chances with that RT score. They got hit hard by Quantumania, as you might recall. So did Super Mario Brothers. They got hit hard by the RT score. I still maintain that Universal knew that was going to be low, which is why the review embargo lifted just the day before release for that movie. That's like, you know what that strategy means. So anyway, what Disney Marvel is doing is they have fan IMAX screenings that were just announced on Friday night. Sorry, if you don't have passes, they're already gone. So I hope, for those of you who have passes, are you excited? But they have a handful of fan IMAX screenings on Friday night to either back up the critics' positive RT score that debuts earlier in the day, or to combat it. Or there are other combinations that we could see. What do you think is going to happen on Friday? Again, Thursday night, majority of critics see it. 1 p.m. Friday, the review embargo lifts. Friday evening, fan IMAX screenings, which we should have a ton of conversation online. But that also means spoilers. Man. So you should maybe start muting certain words right now. I don't know if you can mute all the words. Let's see. I don't know how spoilery of a movie this is. I think it's more of like, do you enjoy the experience? So maybe, I think the very fact that they're willing to air it, to show it a week early to fans, I think, they just want to get across what a good time it is. So,
again, I feel for the most part, there's a lot that she said that I think is kind of spot on, because this doesn't usually happen. No, this never happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the first time Marvel has done something quite differently in their release strategy. And I feel like what her reasoning was, Marvel putting this out there to have what they're calling, exclusive fan screenings on Friday evening as a way to either back up a positive Rotten Tomatoes score or to combat a negative Rotten Tomatoes score. I feel like that communicates a couple of things to me. The first thing it communicates to me is they're nervous. They're seeing the things that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you have to wonder, like, is the leadership aware about the number of problems that, is surrounding them? Are they even aware for why it was that Ant-Man was such a colossal failure? And the answer to that question is yes and no. Because with them doing this fan screening, to my eye, and you please tell me if you feel differently, but, to me, it kind of screams, we know there's a problem. We don't really know what the problem is, but, hey, we want to put this out there to say to you guys, thank you for going to our movies, and here's the special thing for you to make you feel a little more comfortable, and maybe if you like it so much, go and tell your friends to go see this too. Because it's not just the disaster that was, Quantumania, it was also the fact that the tracking for the movie had been really low. I want to say that, and again, that the tracking for box office isn't really that spot on. A lot of the times it's very under to what it could be, but the tracking had been at 130 something million for opening weekend, which for a movie of this scale is low.
Yeah.
It sounds very low, So like, well, that had been the tracking for a couple of weeks. And so here's the thing. If that tracking is true, if it's true that it was at 130, and let's say it opens to that, or 140 opening weekend, I feel like that almost completely confirms all of the problems that we've been saying is going on over there. Because how else do you explain that of all the Marvel movies, a Guardians of the Galaxy film ends up opening that low? What other explanation would there be than audiences are at a turning point?
Yeah.
When you throw a Black Adam and a Quantumania back to back, I know a lot of the stuff that we said was in speculation to what we think was, what may be shifting, but like if Guardians 3 really does open that low, uh-oh. That's bad. That's like, and by the way, this is not gonna at all impact James Gunn's career. He's set. Like this is not gonna affect him. The people who have to watch their backs if this movie somehow underperforms, it starts with Kevin and it ends with Feige.
Yeah.
That would be a huge failure. And I think to me, well, I don't know. Do you read it the same way?
Well, I mean, first of all, with my thoughts on the movie, I really don't want this series to end, dude. I rewatched both movies a couple of days ago. Oh my!
I'm so pissed. Like I told you, they're having a marathon of the movies, but I can't go because it's in San Diego.
Yeah,
and I fucking work, man. If I had the week off, you'd think I would be camping out over there to see those movies again in theaters because I have such amazing memories of not just the Guardians films, but the first time I saw those films. There's such magic to them, And at various different stages in my life that I saw both of them, but it's like, yes, I really probably should see them. I need to make the time for it, but I don't know where to find the time for it. But hey, yeah, you it seems like you did. You were saying.
Yeah. So part of me doesn't want this to end, but also I gotta know what's gonna happen. Especially from that clip I saw, there's a character in there that I'm like, I need to know what's gonna happen to you. But yeah, I mean, just the anticipation of it all. I mean, there's just a lot of things working against this movie. For one thing, yeah, Ant-Man, Black Adam, Shazam 2, and just all the other Marvel movies. As much as I enjoyed Love and Thunder, the quality of CGI was just horrible. You can still see the mess that was happening within that movie. It's same thing as all the other ones.
It pains me to say it because I feel that film gets a bad rap. I even saw a clip someone put on Twitter a few weeks ago of the scene where Thor and Jane are like, they still love each other, but then she tells him that she has cancer. What a great scene that was. But then you look at other moments in the movie and it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
But, you know, the trend lately has been movies in this genre that have been lackluster.
Mm-hmm.
And I think saying that they've been lackluster is very charitable.
Mm-hmm.
Downright, some of them have been trash.
Yeah, for sure. And then with James Gunn, I mean, you got people who, for some reason, just don't like his style of directing. I never understood it. He's funny. He makes good character stories and all that. Like, I don't really understand why you would. I understand like why you probably wouldn't like Guardians 3, but I don't understand why you think it would be bad, or like why you think it's going to fail and all that. And so if it does do badly in the box office, I really have no idea what the fuck Kevin Feige's gonna do. Like, I legit hope. I honestly wouldn't mind if he does this, but like, just fucking cancel everything after Guardians 3. Honestly, like, take a step back.
Yeah, you and I are perfectly happy saying that because we don't care anymore. Like, there's nothing in the future that has our excitement. So, like, okay, cancel it. I mean, if you plan on keeping Chloe Bennett, don't cancel that. But everything else, go ahead and cancel it. But
I mean, it's not even just because like I don't care. It's just because, I mean, like I said this before, you're starting over. You know, it's like Doctor Who when you bring in a new doctor. Okay, you don't bring in Matt Smith and then all of a sudden he has to. Well, I mean, he does this every season, but he has to save the universe and all that. But like, I don't know, I don't know how big of a scale you have to do it with Doctor Who or something. Well, it's not like in the first episode he has to save the universe or something like that. No, the first episode of every new Doctor is just, it's small scale, and you're trying to get to know him. He's trying to get to know himself, you know, and that's what should have been the entire phase 1 of the MC, or phase, what is it, 5, whatever, of the MCU. You know, just figure out who are these new characters, film it in a way that it's gonna bring in new audiences. Like, I know some people would hate this, but like, forget about us, forget about the people who like watched those first 10 years. Like, who, I'm sorry, but he needs to bring in a new audience, build them up for the next 10 years again. That's all he had to do. And I don't mean like, oh, fuck what you guys think or anything like that. And it's like, no. He just, he got your attention. He brought you on a journey, and now that journey ended. It's time to move on. Okay. The reason why Doctor Who goes on is because he starts all over, and you know, it went on for 50 years. That was always the thing. Power Rangers too. How fucking long has that gone on? And it's because it starts a new series every single time, and it's always bringing in new audiences. I remember once I saw Power Rangers when I was a kid, and then one day I'm walking around the high school, and there's like a I don't know, kindergarten class there, and all of a sudden I hear them say Power Rangers Ninja, and I'm like, holy shit, these kids are watching that series and all that, and I'm in high school. Yeah. You know, it's bringing in a new audience.
Right. I mean, that's how I feel about Pokemon. You know, it's like, you know, we've talked about it already for weeks, but like, hey, it continues to find it's still as popular, if not even more so, to this very day than when we were that age. It's fucking crazy to see that, you know? I think ultimately, you know, earlier on in the week, I was having a conversation with you guys about like, you know, what's really at the heart of all of the problems with Star Wars and Marvel. You know, they have a lot of issues going on, and they can't quite seem to get things right. But I think the key thing that unites them is in the way that they fail. And that is, they feel like they're such fucking slaves to thinking about how do we make this in a way that the fans are going to react, that the fans are going to clap, that the fans are going to like it. And to me, that's like Yoda saying, that is why you fail. That's not how you make a worthwhile story. It's just not. And I think Houston Coley is one of the people who I feel put it in the plainest of terms when he's talking about J.J. Abrams and Jon Favreau's whole deal as far as who they are as filmmakers and contrasting that with somebody like James Cameron. Here's the clip.
James Cameron is a man of the people, but he has one crucial difference from lots of the other quote-unquote populist directors today, and that's that he is fully willing to acknowledge that he knows better than the audience what they actually want. Cameron is not interested in crowd pleasing. He's not interested in just pleasing the audience momentarily with something they think is like, oh wow, that name got dropped, or oh wow, that's an Easter egg. He's interested in satisfying the audience on a deep level, and he knows how to do it better than the audience even knows what they want. So many directors today are chasing after the high of the movies that they watched in their childhood and learning all the wrong lessons from the movies from their childhood, imitating the wrong things. Cameron has learned all the right lessons.
I think ultimately it's like you need to hire visionaries that, for one, are competent. I know it's kind of an arbitrary thing to like look for as far as qualifications, but you need to put people in place that have a fucking clue, you know, and try and kind of rekindle it. Because I feel like that's ultimately what's happening with Marvel Studios, is they've gotten comfortable, and honestly, they're kind of surprised that they're in the situation that they're in. But we're not surprised, are we? We've been saying it for a long time now that this was coming. And when you think about how quickly it all just came, you know, it kind of just culminated. Like, it's really true what they say, that life comes at you fast. Life comes at you fast when you least expect it. All this shit happens at once. So, but at the same time, there are another subset of people that don't like James Gunn for different reasons. I think the ones that you mentioned were like they don't, you know, gel or vibe with his filmmaking style. That's one thing, right? I don't think you mentioned there's this other horde of James Gunn haters that in part are Zack Snyder stans, but in part they're DC stans. And for whatever reason, I feel all of this stems from the day that Henry Cavill was dismissed and it was revealed he would no longer play Superman, that all of a sudden these people come out of the woodwork and are like overly vicious and overly critical about James Gunn's, you know, leadership, even though not a single movie has been released that, you know, he has been there for just a few months, and yet people hate him with a fucking passion. Like, there's just people who go after at him for the most benign of reasons. Like, so what? He puts people that he knows in his personal life in his movies. Every filmmaker does that. Why is he somehow unique in this? Why are you going to single him out? Is it because he hurt your feelings? Is it because he's not going to bring back your favorite guy? Right? So it's like, that's a whole different horde that he has to contend with. And part of the hope in that the Guardians 3 is great is that it'll maybe shut some of them up. Because there's also a lot of people who are saying that James Gunn would not make a great Superman movie. And I'm like, but have you seen his movies? One James Gunn critic who liked the first movie but didn't like Guardians 2 was Christian Harloff. I feel his reasons are rather silly, but those are his feelings. he just happened to drop his reaction. Wow. Guardians 3 delivers on multiple levels, emotion, humor, and most of all, balance. This is a perfect conclusion to James Gunn's trilogy. Easily my favorite of the three and the best MCU film since No Way Home by miles. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Scott Mendelson, formerly from Forbes, saying Guardians 3 is too long and the climax is overdone. But it's visually spectacular. Superbly acted and shockingly somber finale. It ends very well and plays like a knowing funeral for the notion of MCU movies as a dominant pop culture force. It reminded me of the fourth Rambo. Okay? Brandon Katz really liked Guardians 3. Despite its length, it rarely drags as it combines entertainment, emotion, and humor. Stripped down plot allows for, again, here, plot isn't what makes a good movie. People should have to really reevaluate why films are so great. And plot sometimes, honestly, is one of the lesser things to go into. Sure, it helps to make a story have more twists and turns, depending on what kind of story that it is. But it's like, that's another thing that the Guardians Volume 2 was criticized for, that there was hardly any plot. And David just rolled his eyes. Okay, but it just reminded me when I read this reaction. So he says, stripped down plot allows for every character to get their due within their own mini arcs. Satisfying and cathartic conclusion. Guardians 3 and Cap are the best trilogies in the MCU. I mean, was there ever any question with that statement? David, do you have a quick snapshot of these reactions so far? Anything to take away?
I mean, it's just about what I expect with every Marvel review. Honestly, some people hate it,
right.
Some people love it, and all. The thing though is I feel like people are a lot more calm about this one for some reason, because I feel like every other Marvel movie, like this one, the scales of it are almost even for Guardians 3. But then with every other one, the scales are on the opposite ends, completely opposite
where
ends.
Where it's super love and super hate.
Yeah. And so it's just kind of okay, you guys know the situation here and you just don't want to give your full opinions or something. Come on.
Yeah. But how I mentioned when we first started talking about Guardians, David, it still feels like it doesn't feel real, like it's coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because part of me doesn't want that to happen. But like it or not, here it comes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're heading into. Also, I did want to address something. Oh, real quick, I have another one here. Courtney Howard, who is one of the voices I like to follow on here. Guardians 3 is a rousing delight, packed with hilarity and sincerity. Finds a brilliant balance between the dark and light material, which is guided by genuine, earned emotion. Houses a perfect, long-running gag, proving a chilling and this villain chilling and menacing. Real quick, a couple of other things I want to mention. David, I know we've talked about this and we've been talking about this on every show, but I gotta ask you, do you feel more and more like a part of you dies every time you see a new still image or a new clip from the upcoming Little Mermaid movie?
Oh my god. I don't understand how they keep making worse and worse things come out of that movie. Like I genuinely don't understand how anyone in there looks at this stuff and goes, "Yeah, that's great. Put it out there." And it's like they know that these movies aren't doing that well. Like, yeah, Lion King was successful, but there's a reason why they put Pinocchio on Disney Plus, and all. And so, why are you doing it like this? Like, I don't care. Like, if it's the story is just like mid or lame or something, fine, whatever. You wanted to put something out there that you know will probably make a quick buck, but why would you make the quality so bad of it? I'm talking about CGI and all that. I just don't understand it.
Every day we're getting something new coming out of the movie, and it makes my heart hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It also just hurts my brain, if I'm being honest, because I agree with you. The more you look at it and the more new things they throw at us, the more confounding it all gets, right? It's like, who in their right mind ordered this? Who looked at this and thought, good to go, keep going? It's like, it's terrible. Like, I mean, and it's funny how Disney loves to drop character posters. So they dropped character posters of Sebastian and Flounder. Only it's not. It's a crab and a fish.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they look like posters you find at SeaWorld.
Yeah.
Like, it's something you find at Disneyland. They even, did you see that clip I shared with you guys of this was the clip that Peter said that motion didn't help it. How would you describe that clip? This was over the weekend. I sent you, because I think it was in Germany or someplace that they had released. Well, first of all, now you remember what it is?
I remember now.
Okay, how do you describe that?
I mean, when one of you said it, it just looked like a horrible commercial.
Like a cheap commercial.
Yeah. Oh my god!
It was awful. What is what? I'm gonna share with you this image. Like, what is this? Did you see this?
Oh,
this is an image of Ariel and then her sisters, the daughters of Triton.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what is this image? It looks awful.
Mm-hmm.
Like this looks like they would be on the cover of a cheap coloring book.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Oh my god! I really don't know why they approved that. Seriously.
It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course that's to say nothing of the, I'm sorry, man. It's depressing looking at the Flounder and Sebastian designs. Like, dude, this is, and of course I'll include Scuttle in that too. This is the best it could do? Really?
Mm-hmm.
And then again, you think, please tell me, I don't think I'm exaggerating here, but everything they release, it's like it hits another new low.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just when we think this can't possibly get any worse, guess what? They top themselves. Oh, yeah, there was this still image of Halle Bailey's Ariel holding a fork. Did you see this image?
No.
With Flounder and Scuttle?
Oh.
It looks like a parody.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't look real.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole point of this movie is that they made it with the intent of it looking kind of real, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What did you make of what did you make of the clip they released for Part of Your World? I'll play a little bit of it here, not the whole thing.
Okay. I noticed that in the first trailer. I don't know if you remember. It was like,
yes,
like it was like, I was like, I want to be, and she added like extra E's at the end, basically what she did there,
right,
and all that. And I'm like, oh, too much right there. And now she's
it's like, oh. It's like, it's bad enough. It's bad enough you bastardize everything else. But now you feel the need to completely, I think it's a bit much to say it ruins the song, but it's like it misses what was special about it by it's overproduced and it's overly sung. Like, ready to stand. Like, what?
No, she's not supposed to give a performance. She's supposed to act. She's a 16.
Yes.
She's supposed to be a 16-year-old girl, not a Broadway singer or something like that. I don't know. And so it's just too much already with the songs and everything. Nothing against the actress. Her voice is like perfect for the role.
Oh yeah,
and all that.
It's just the direction of how she was directed to sing the song. I don't think was the right way to go. Like sure. I mean, it's it's too stagey. Sure, I don't want to, but like the inflection is just strange. You know, overly emphasized. And then this part right here. Like, is this opera?
Yeah.
It's just like, up above. It keeps going, and like, okay, what?
You think this is
it's like it's unnecessary?
Do you think this is like a response to the Aladdin movie? Because remember we complained that like the music or like the singing and that just wasn't.
David, I forgot that existed.
Oh my god! Well, like
I forgot that existed, and remember that movie put me to sleep. So you mean like the music in the Aladdin film was way too like overly produced? Is that what it was? And
no,
hollow or
it was hollow. Like remember there was a clip of oh my god, Will Smith singing Prince Ali, and we were kind of like, it doesn't have that same energy as in the animated one. And then I think it was Peter who said like put it at 2 times speed or something, or 1.2 speed, and you get, and it's a lot better. And so now they're doing it with this, but they're overproducing it.
It feels like she's going for
an Oscar win.
Or a Mariah Carey performance, right?
Yeah.
She's like trying to like do like vocal gymnastics while doing the song, and it's like, you would think that they would already be doing enough to just destroy Howard Ashman's vision for the film. And I'm sure Rob Marshall and Lin-Manuel Miranda are huge fans of Howard Ashman. But like, how are you a fan of Howard Ashman and not having seen the clip of how intricate, precise, and downright demanding he was of Jodie Benson, particularly when recording that song? If any of you who are listening don't know what the hell I'm talking about, go on YouTube. It's there. It's from 89, 88, I believe. It's the recording session of the song, and like to the ear, every take that Jodie does is great, but he's like, no. This is how it's even better. This is like the particular inflection is key to how well we remember how that song being. How can you purport to being a Howard Ashman stan, then turn around and make this and produce a version of this of all songs that sounds like this? Ready to stand. It's like, what? What? Okay. The voice is amazing.
Yes.
Halle Bailey, as far as the voice is concerned, casts this character, no complaints here. She has got the chops, for sure. The problem is the directing. The problem is, really, this comes across like them going out of their way to change or just top what the original version did. The problem there is, and they won't ever acknowledge this because it's not just that they can't ever come up with a better version than Jodie Benson's, vocal performance, but the same can be said of the movie itself. It doesn't matter how good or not the best live action remix would be. It never would have ever come close to the legend that is Disney's The Little Mermaid.
Mm-hmm.
The same way, and the same goes for any of the other remakes that they have. But, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this. I'm happy that this movie comes out Memorial Weekend, because I'm never here Memorial Weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I always leave the country when it comes to Memorial Weekend. So I'll be in Mexico getting drunk.
Nice.
So I'll leave that to you guys. If you want to do a review by yourselves, feel free, and you can upload it. You of course you have the information, but it's like I'm gonna be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Bye. That way I don't have to like commiserate with this bullshit going on. Anyway, I feel like we can go ahead and close it off there.
Mm-hmm.
Next time we meet, as in the next time we do a recording for the show, we most likely, let me ask you this, when do you plan on seeing Guardians? What day do you plan on seeing Guardians?
I'm fairly confident that I'll probably watch it Thursday night.
Careful. Spoilers. I don't think we'll see that until Friday.
Okay.
Because that day usually works better for us anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be down for either Friday evening or Saturday to do a recording?
For sure. Yeah.
To review the movie? That's gonna be exciting.
Oh my god.
That's gonna be so exciting. You know, one thing I did forget to mention, CinemaCon is going on, or wrapped up, whatever it was, and they did drop, a lot of people dropped reactions for the Flash movie. You tell me if you looked at it a bit differently. Again, their reactions to a comic book film, you can only really like go off of them so much, but also understanding that the crowd that goes to CinemaCon is a mixture of the people who always say positive things and some that sometimes say negative things. Mm-hmm. So that's a big asterisk. But the reactions seem to be overwhelmingly positive. However, it didn't convey to me that it was amazing. The feeling I had from reading those reactions was that it was certainly very good, damn good in a couple of places, and definitely worth it coming out. But I didn't quite get the vibe that they were wowed by it.
Yeah.
More that they really liked it, you know? How did you think about that? Again, knowing that you can only really go off of these reactions so much. You have to wait for the actual written reviews to drop to get a better sense for how people feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it the same way as with Guardians 3 and all. It's like people are just, they know what's the situation going on here, and they don't want to give their full thoughts, because especially with Ezra, this one especially more so because of Ezra Miller. They don't want to be like, this was great. And then people will start being like, well, what about Ezra Miller? Like, was he good? And all that, blah, blah, blah. And so they would kind of want to say that it's mid, so that it's like, okay, maybe he just wasn't a standout, and blah, blah, blah. Or it's like, okay, maybe people will watch it and then it will go away or something. I don't know.
Look, if the film ends up being really successful, and if they're able, and I mean they as in WB, if WB is able to get Ezra Miller under control and stay that way, again, we live in a world where money talks. We live in a world where we put profits before, human decency. Mm-hmm. So is it really that crazy to think there's just a small chance Ezra might stick around?
I
mean, you don't want to say yes, because the things that he's been accused of are horrible. And honestly, the things that he's been accused of are individual fireable offenses, but combined together, this guy, he lucked out. He lucked out because the studio spent all its money and they're in a bad spot. But because he would have been dismissed a long time ago.
I don't know. It's just, for me, it just feels like the obvious thing to do is to let him go. You know?
Because look how much he almost fucked it up for you. Look how bad of a spot you were in.
Yeah.
But then who's going to care about that when the movie comes out and it's successful?
That's the thing, though. Like, even if it is successful, I like to think that they're not saying anything until the movie comes out. Because if they're like, Ezra Miller's fired, they're not gonna go, oh, well, then what's the point of watching The Flash? You know, that's kind of that happened with Shazam 2. What was the other one? Black Adam, I guess you can say. That people kind of thought, what's the point of watching
the ever forgettable Black Adam, as we just saw right now.
You know, especially with Shazam 2, people were kind of like, well, what's the point in this if it's gonna become and DC
people are
movies...
asking the same about Blue Beetle and Aquaman too.
And so with Ezra Miller on, I think it's gonna sound bad, but like I think it's a good idea to kind of keep it up in the air about his whole situation.
No, they're playing it right. They're playing it right in terms of what they care about most, and that is their profits. Let's be clear about that. And people should understand that we're not advocating for somebody like Ezra Miller to be given a pass. He absolutely shouldn't have been. But you have to understand the reasons for why he's been given a pass are due to capitalism, guys. At the same time, did you see the recent trailer for The Flash?
Yeah.
It was a pretty good trailer, man.
The trailers have been really good.
Really good. It's like, whoa. Like, again, I'm not that nostalgic about Tim Burton's Batman, but Michael Keaton looks pretty fucking great. Even Kara, right? The Superman multiverse character, Supergirl. I guess the multiverse Supergirl here. She looks great. Like, they've been great trailers. And it's Andy Muschietti. He's an actual good director. And everyone's saying nice, like really, really good things about the film. So it's like, I don't know, dude. Even the sequences and the VFX look pretty good in the trailer.
For sure.
So, who knows, right? Who knows how we're going to feel about that one. But is there... It seemed pretty obvious, right? But and I may have already asked you already. Is there one movie you're looking forward to the most this summer?
Spider-Verse, Barbie.
Yeah, yeah.
I already saw Super Mario. So.
And the whole world did too.
Yeah. I think that's it. TMNT.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and leave it there, guys. David, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, of course, the audience, for staying tuned here under a red spotlight that you can catch every single Sunday. Keep it here for more coming out of the world of movies, including Guardians and all of the summer box office hits. Here we go again, guys. Let's make it a great summer of 2023. We will see you back here next time. Bye.
Bye.